Every legal conflict starts with a single point of friction, a breached contract or an unpaid debt. Without strict procedural boundaries, that friction rapidly fractures into a sprawling web of co-signers, subcontractors, and indemnity claims. The rules of civil procedure use Rule 6 to impose order on this expansion. It defines the specific pleadings required to translate a raw dispute into a structured court case. This map illustrates the foundational logic of a claim. It begins with the subject matter, the specific property, contract, or physical act at the center of the disagreement. The subject matter remains inert until a cause of action occurs. This is the specific act or omission by the defendant that violates the plaintiff's legal rights. A violation only becomes a lawsuit when the plaintiff possesses a right of action. This is the substantive legal authority to seek redress in court for that specific injury. The pathway concludes at the remedy and relief, the exact form of intervention the plaintiff prays the court to adjudicate, such as the payment of a loan or the foreclosure of a mortgage. Civil pleadings serve as the vehicle for this four-step sequence. They inject the subject matter, cause, right, and relief into the court's jurisdiction. Litigation moves along a primary axis. The plaintiff files an initiatory complaint, and the defendant responds with an answer. A defendant may deploy a negative defense. This involves a specific denial of the material facts alleged in the plaintiff's pleading. This strategy keeps the burden of proof on the plaintiff. By denying the facts, the defendant forces the claimant to produce evidence for every essential element of their case. Alternatively, an affirmative defense hypothetically admits the plaintiff's allegations while introducing a new matter that bars recovery. The arrow enters the defendant's node, but is immediately redirected into a legal barrier. These barriers include fraud, payment, or the statute of limitations. If a debt has prescribed under the Civil Code, the plaintiff is barred from recovery, regardless of whether the debt was once valid. Defendants must raise these defenses early. Rule 6 dictates that affirmative defenses are considered waived if they are not included in the initial answer. This choice dictates the trial's trajectory. The litigator either contests the accuracy of the plaintiff's facts or bypasses them to prove a superseding legal reason why the case must be dismissed. The defending party may also launch an offensive strike. A counterclaim allows the defendant to assert their own claims against the original plaintiff. The matrix bifurcates counterclaims based on their relationship to the main case. A permissive counterclaim involves unrelated matters, while a compulsory counterclaim arises directly from the same transaction or occurrence. To identify a compulsory counterclaim, courts look for a logical relationship. They ask if the issues of fact and law are the same, and if separate trials would cause a substantial duplication of effort. If the same evidence supports the plaintiff's claim and the defendant's counterclaim, the two are inextricably linked. Failing to raise a compulsory counterclaim creates a permanent procedural bar. The claim is dead and cannot be litigated in a future suit. The rules incentivize these claims to ensure judicial economy. Compulsory counterclaims bypass standard filing fees and do not require a certification against forum shopping. Notably, the counterclaim possesses its own independent life. If a judge dismisses the main complaint, the defendant's counterclaim remains active and proceeds to judgment. The compulsoriness rule serves as an efficiency mechanism. It ruthlessly forces all related grievances into a single arena to conserve the court's time. When liability is shared between multiple defendants, the litigation matrix expands laterally. This is a cross-claim, an internal action by one party against a co-party. It must arise from the same transaction that is the subject of the original action. Consider a collection suit against two solidary debtors. If defendant B immediately settles the debt with the plaintiff, the primary axis is satisfied. To settle the internal imbalance, defendant B files a cross-claim, demanding co-defendant C reimburse him for $50. This allows a defendant to pull an entirely new, non-party into the existing litigation. This is an extraordinary expansion that requires formal leave of court. Judges act as gatekeepers to ensure the new claim is strictly relevant to the plaintiff's original demand. Consider a contractor sued by a wood supplier. The contractor files a third-party complaint against a hotel developer, alleging that his ability to pay the supplier is premised on the hotel first paying him for the installation. The third-party complaint is proper
because the new defendant's liability is premised on the original defendant losing to the plaintiff. It is a claim for indemnity or subrogation. A judge will deny this complaint if the third party cannot be located within 30 days, or if it introduces extraneous controversies that would unmanageably complicate the trial. These complaints represent the outer boundary of the litigation web, strictly filtered to prevent a simple collection suit from ballooning into an unrelated corporate saga. We return to the primary axis for the final interaction, the plaintiff's reply to the answer. The 2019 amended Rules of Court significantly limited this pleading. Generally, new matters in an answer are automatically deemed controverted, making a reply unnecessary. A plaintiff may only file a reply if the defendant attaches an actionable document to the answer. The reply then serves to deny or avoid the facts relating specifically to that document. If the answer reveals information that requires the plaintiff to assert entirely new claims, they must amend the original complaint rather than attempting to include them in a reply. This restriction severs the loop of administrative paperwork, forcing the parties to conclude the pleading stage and proceed to trial. This completed map summarizes the entire procedural journey under Rule 6. It connects initiatory lines, affirmative barriers, compulsory loops, and external links into a single pulse. Rule 6 functions as a strict containment system. It rigorously organizes these various claims and defenses into a single structural framework. This system exists to combat the multiplicity of suits, the primary enemy of judicial efficiency. It prevents the same transaction from generating fragmented, repetitive lawsuits. Compulsory claim rules and stringent gatekeeping for third parties act as a structural vice. They squeeze interconnected disputes into a singular, decisive ruling. For a practitioner, these are not mere guidelines, they are jurisdictional boundaries. A single failure to raise a compulsory claim or an affirmative defense results in a permanent loss of rights. Mastering Rule 6 involves treating a lawsuit as a dynamic spatial geometry. This perspective allows a litigator to trap opponents within the matrix or securely expand the battlefield to their advantage.